Failure is delay, but not defeat. It is a temporary detour, not a dead-end street. William Arthur Ward. So welcome back to another Against the Grain Syndicate version. It's Jeff Black here today with me. I'm Jason Roberson, Robo. Jason Theobald Scooby is unable to join us. He's a little bit sick at this time, but that's okay. We have an amazing guest today, a good friend of Jeff and Jeff and mine, Baker Reynolds. Baker is an entrepreneur. He's a businessman here in Nashville, has done really well for himself. And so we brought him on because we want you to hear his journey, a little bit about the ups and the downs. He did something that most people are afraid to do. He took a chance, he failed, and he came back and took another swing, and he keeps going after his goals and his passions. So Baker, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. I like the shoes.
Thank you.
You always have the good fashion. A little Izod shirt. Or is that like this little whale? Martha Vineyard. Making sure.
Yeah. For those on Spotify, Baker is very much well dressed, and Jeff and I are complete slubs.
No, he gets. I feel like when I'm up in Knoxville, like you're the guy that I see on Fraternity Row walking by with two Bud Lights just hanging out.
Yeah. Not the Bud Lights.
Yeah, nah, that's right. You can't have Bud Lights up there. It's Bud Lights. It's my bad.
Were you a frat guy in college?
I was.
Yeah.
What fraternity?
SAE.
How much trouble you get into?
I didn't get into a whole lot. As a group, we got into a lot, but individually, I didn't get into much trouble.
You went to a private school? Is that
for college?
Yeah.
I went to MTSU.
MTSU. Yep. Okay. Jeez.
Oh.
Yeah. So my concern is, I mean, he's a frat boy. Can we take anything seriously from here on out?
I wanted to go to University of Tennessee, but I didn't get in, so I had to settle with MTSU and ended up enjoying it. So
yeah, weren't we just talking before the show started about how college degrees don't matter anyway?
We were.
Oh, they're worthless. Yeah, no. Worthless. I wish I never kept that promise to my mom and went back and got my degree out with $40K richer and been able to invest it in something else.
Right.
I should have taken my grad school money and put it in a business, but
looking back,
yeah. So Baker, tell us a little bit about, let's start at MTSU. You graduate. Where did you go, after you graduated? What was that early career path like for you?
Yeah, so I graduated with entrepreneurship, business degree. Didn't really have a direction at all. So sold cars for 2 years, hated it. And so...
I sold cars too. It was miserable, man.
Yeah, it was tough. It wasn't a good environment for me. But so I just really had to reflect on what I enjoyed to do and what I enjoyed being around. So I just kept landing on... I love being on the water. So made it my goal to land at a spot to sell boats. So I sent my resume around the country, had an interview in Vegas, North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia, and landed in Georgia and went down there for 2 years, sold boats, had a great time. Ended up meeting my now wife, who actually was living in Franklin. So wanted to get back closer to family anyway. She was kind of that nudge to get me back. So came back to the Nashville, Franklin area and continued selling boats at that dealership. And at the time, they didn't have a finance department, so I decided to spearhead a finance department to kind of grow that side of the business for them. And that went well. And during that time, buddy of mine and I, through selling boats, I realized there was a big shortage on, we got people that are wanting to buy boats, but they have nowhere to put them. And so that's kind of what spurred our idea on doing the boat and RV storage.
So tell us more about the boat and RV storage. What does that actually look like?
So we've got, it's in Manchester, Tennessee, so it's about an hour outside of Nashville. And we wanted to there's a ton of self-storage stuff. You see those everywhere, but there weren't any huge storage facilities for boats and RVs. So we wanted to kind of separate ourselves, go into a little bit more of a niche market for that. So we did it in 2 phases. The first phase, we did 25 units. They're 45-foot units, fully enclosed. So they're humongous individual units. And we've now grown to 58 units out there. So
Nice. So wow, you're going from boat salesman, you see a need, you build a massive storage center. That's a huge jump. So how do you get comfortable with that? What steps did you take to actually make that a reality?
First, we had to identify the land, right? Because we didn't know where we wanted to do it. We started looking around in Nashville. We interviewed. We started going to different boat and RV storage facilities in Tennessee and Kentucky, interviewing those owners, kind of seeing their perspective on how things went. So we spent probably 6 months interviewing different people. And one of the guys, we were so boat focused, our goal was to find land right on the water, right? Buy a ramp or something so it's super convenient for the boat people. And he said, you're way, let me slow you down, you're way too boat minded. I know that's kind of like where y'all's life is, but he said, I have way more RV people than boat people. So don't focus on the lake, focus on accessibility. So we found a little piece of property like 300 yards from Interstate 24 in Manchester, just right off the exit. And so when we landed on that site, that's kind of just made a lot of sense for us after those interviews and due diligence with those different owners and what we learned from them.
Yeah. So I'm super curious. When you were talking to people about this idea, going through the steps, did people say, that's stupid? What do you know about developing a business, from scratch? What do you know about developing land?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple layers to it, right? There's 90% of the people we talk to are like, I've been thinking about doing that for a long time, boat and RV storage. Yeah.
About gyms all the time.
I've been thinking, I want to do that. I just haven't found the land, or I haven't,
It's always a fucking excuse,
I haven't
man.
had the time. So that there was a lot of people that, claimed they were going to get into it and just never took action. And then once we bought the property was when we started getting do you even know anything about construction, site development? And we didn't at all. And we learned the hard way, but without taking the action,
to even have some background, read any books. Like when you get told site development, it's like right now, I don't know much about SEO, so I'm reading a lot about SEO to try to understand it. Did you start taking some meetings on it to try to get ramped up, or was it you guys just kept going through and just kept getting hit the hard way?
On that first phase, we just kept going through and got hit the hard way. We bought the property and had an incredible layout for the storage facility, right? We were going to be able to fit 150 units on this property. And then when it came time to meet with codes and the city to show them our plan, we didn't even know what a setback was on a piece of property. So we thought we could build these buildings to the edge of the property and wrap it around. And we don't even know what is a setback. And we couldn't even build 50 feet from the property lines, which shrunk our property to a point where we couldn't build nearly as many as we thought. So that was the first layer to it. And then we just kept putting the cart before the horse, but we just kind of took it in the teeth and kept going.
Yeah. And that's the important part is you kept going. So I know that was one setback. What were the other big ones you ran into and how did you overcome them?
With the storage facility, it was...
You forgot. I said setback. Did you guys get that? That was pretty good. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I see what you did there. Yeah. Like I said, we did all of the research on, who to attract there. We didn't do the research on how to build it.
Yeah.
So probably could have done a little bit more research there, but I think it would have taken us a lot longer to get to where we were because we would have been kind of analysis by paralysis maybe without taking action. But I think it was finding the right people. We kind of jumped on the first person that we talked to that said they could develop the property, and the first guy that we talked to that said he's done these before. We didn't really interview enough of the contractors and builders on that first one. And so we spent a lot more time and money than we probably could have if we would have interviewed somebody that really knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot more money on hiring somebody that didn't really know what they were doing, but we trusted them because they were the first person we talked to and we didn't know what we were doing and they sounded like they knew what they were doing to us. Yeah. So, interviewing maybe at least 3 people for each phase of the project would have gone a long way for us.
Yeah, that's something I started doing I'll read books and then I'll try to get put with people and then hopefully know enough for the books to have an intelligent conversation so I could kind of decipher who knows what and validate them. I wanted to ask something though. how many times did you want to quit by now? And how many months in were you from day you broke ground, you know, or the day you got the first setback, as Robo said, to this point? How many times did you want to quit?
Multiple times. So the benefit of my business partner that I grew up with is, fortunately at the time we were both, when one of us was down, the other one was super optimistic. When he was down, I was super optimistic. So we kind of balanced each other out. But we bought the property in October of 2018, and we got into probably May-ish of 2019. And we're like, we just need to sell. We just need to sell the land. Like, we're way in over our head. We have no idea what we're doing. It's going to cost more than we thought. We can't put as many buildings on the property as we thought because codes didn't allow it. And we were super overwhelmed. And so we were probably 2 weeks away from finding a realtor to put the property back up and just see if we could make some money or get our money back out of the property. And after a conversation together, let's do one more push and see what happens.
Why did you choose to do it with a partner to begin with, and then why this guy specifically?
So he actually approached me about it.
Okay.
He and I grew up together on the lake. We'd known each other for our whole life. And when I moved back to Tennessee from Georgia, we went to an event together, and he's like, man, I really want to do something, and I'd love to bring you on because I know you've got a lot of energy around it. And I think storage might be a good idea. And then that's when I hit him, like, I've got the market research in the day-to-day, like, people have nowhere to put these boats because I'm selling these boats, or I'm not able to sell the boats because they don't have anywhere to put them. And so we kind of both put those ideas together and took off with it.
Out of curiosity, how did your wife feel about all of this?
At that time, we were just dating,
Okay.
but she was excited.
She was. Okay. Super
So she didn't
supportive.
put you down?
No,
Good.
no, that's through the good and bad of some of these different things we've tried. That's been the one solid rock behind me. She's been super supportive all the way through any of it. So
That's awesome, man.
it's been great.
You don't have that resistance, that headbutt, or that doubt, because by now we're doubting yourself a lot.
It's you know, I trust you. You'll figure it out. Just go get it and keep moving forward. And she's been great for that.
Yeah. Baker kind of hit above his level on that one.
I did.
You outkicked
She's a
your coverage.
doctor too.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. You outkicked your coverage.
I moved back from Georgia quickly before she changed her mind.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah, smart guy. How long? Okay, so now we're in May of 2019. How long from May of 2019 until you actually were able to accept your first payment? And then I guess my question is, how did you go about getting the funding? Because recently I was trying to look at funding for my gym, and banks like, hey, you guys were closed in 2020, so funding isn't what it used to be. So I'm like, all right, I have to solve that my own way.
Yep.
Private crowd fundraising, whatever I choose to do. But how did you guys do it? Did you guys do SBA loan? Did you guys, how did you structure it and all that and collect money?
So we were both in our mid-20s. So we had we were asking for a couple $1 million from the bank.
Yeah.
Why won't they give it to us, right?
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So we were able to come up with, we were able to leverage an investor to purchase the property for us and then quit claim the property to us. And with an agreement behind that we had a payout structure on the back end to get that person paid back. So we were able to use the land itself as collateral to get the loan for the project.
That's actually
Very
a smart
cool.
way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the investor side, how did you find them and how did you convince them to believe in you?
It was my dad.
That is a great way.
So,
Well, I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you though. Like, I bet he probably validated what you were talking about. Like, what did you give him beyond the assurances? Hey, I'm just your son. Like, because, it's still, you got to carry the burden of you might fuck him over.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot of guarantee that.
yeah,
anything's
no,
gonna
exactly.
come out of
Like,
it.
you
Family
have to, like,
reunion
come
would be-
through,
yeah.
right? Like, what was that like to carry that burden? Also, and ask that question.
Yeah.
So, and that was a tough conversation, right? Because I didn't want to have to lean on anybody to do it. But when we really put pen to paper, the only way we could do it is to find somebody to buy the property so we could use it as collateral without having to have a really vested investor that gets a percentage of the business once we get up and going. So we just tried to have our business plan laid out to make sense, and a payback term that was going to make sense. Whether or not the business took off or not, Ryan and I had our personal income to where we could pay him monthly increments to get it paid back, even if the whole thing collapsed.
So he's a private lender at that point for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a tough conversation, but when it was all in my head when I brought it up to him and we laid everything out, and he's like, "This makes complete sense. I'm super proud of you for sticking your neck out there. So let's see what happens."
Had you ever seen that type of structure before, or just came up with it through the process?
It was something we just came up with.
Nice.
Yeah. Because at that time I had zero experience and I didn't even know how are we going to get this couple $1 million. We're just young kids. So
yeah.
How long until you guys turned a profit?
So we opened officially in May of 2020.
So May of 2020.
Yep.
So literally from May of 2019 so it began October 2018. So it was literally 18 months later. Wow.
Yep. And we were able to do a interest only loan.
And what's that?
So
people,
yeah. So you got principal and interest on a loan, and when we borrowed from the bank, we were instead of our payment being the $10,000 a month, it was only like $3,200 a month. So we were able to cover that until we were live and going.
Nice.
So with that learning process, obviously you wish you would have known a little bit more about property development, a little bit more about interviewing contractors. What haven't we addressed that you think would have been beneficial going into that to tell, younger Baker?
That's a good question.
Or is ignorance bliss in a way, and you may not have done it if you knew more?
I think that's where I was going to go with it. I think ignorance was bliss, because if we went to, which this is probably terrible advice, but if we went to codes beforehand to see how we could lay out the site and realized we couldn't do as many units as we thought we could, we probably would have just bailed on the project and looked for a different piece of property. So I think for that project, we got fortunate enough that ignorance was bliss, and it worked out. So
I actually think that that's something that Robo and I have talked about this. When you're almost like that high level business guy, went to an Ivy League college, you're so in the weeds. It's almost like Robo said once, you can become risk adverse. Mm-hmm. But when you're in entrepreneurship, I almost think it's to your advantage to kind of be dumb. It served me well when I opened up Iron House, teeth getting punted in all the time. Okay, I'm all right,
Yep.
And I say that because I think everyone always looking for this perfect thing in entrepreneurship, and a constant theme you hear 9.9 out of 10 times is, no, it was very hard. Yeah. I learned a lot of money, painful lessons, and a lot of sleepless night, painless lessons, and doubt, and people not believing in me, and even myself. And that's a hard journey to take on.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, we were looking at it as a worst case. We have a piece of property that we have to resell. Mm-hmm. We weren't crazy in expenses on launching a business for that particular business. It was just, it's property, and we're putting a building on it. So worst case, we sell the property.
Yeah. So that wasn't enough punishment for you in your life. You went out and you decided to launch another business not too long ago.
Go on that one. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So you opened up May of 2020. You started turning a profit when? And how is the rate of payback? Meaning when you look at this, is this something that you begin making money on it in 5 years, you begin making money on 10 years, and then it's exponential? So people look at it as an investment.
I haven't gone that deep into how we'll pay that property back and how long that's going to take, because I don't think we'll ever pay it back. We're going to keep borrowing against it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Our plan is to continue to build that property. So we went from 25 to 58. We have the ability to potentially buy some property behind it to expand some more. There's 3 acres behind it that we may be able to acquire. We're trying to build that property to 100 units. And once it's stabilized, we plan to just borrow off that property to try to do another facility. So as far as a
Smart strategy, actually, Baker.
As far
Smart.
as far as us getting any money out of it at all, Ryan and I both agreed that for the next 10 years or so, everything is straight back into the business. So we're working our 9-to-5s and our day-to-day jobs to support our families. There's no income coming from that at all.
I like hearing that.
Playing the long game.
Yeah. We're just reinvesting all that money into an account, and then we're hoping to just borrow against it for more properties.
Fair. Is there anything? I'm trying to think of how to say this. When you open up your doors, does it have like a high staff rate, or is it pretty hands off for you?
So, yeah, we run everything completely remotely. There's no
That's
employees.
a beautiful business model. That's actually really cool. So in Arkansas, I saw a gym that was anchored in the center, and around it, it's out by Jared in Jonesboro. Out around it was storage units. Like it was literally a gym, and then all up and down was like private storage units. I'm like, damn, that's smart as hell. All your gym members probably could store their steroids in the back, be able to brew it up, all the stuff like
They
that.
needed a full storage unit for all their steroids.
Bro, I mean, like I've seen some heavy duty things, you know. So, but nonetheless, I was like, that was a smart business model.
Yeah. So we've got a website, and everybody can just go on or rent online. If they have any questions, they call, and I can manage it all remotely. So we go to the property every couple weeks we've got cameras and stuff there, but we go there just to put eyes on it every couple weeks and just let it run.
Wow.
And how far of a drive is it from Nashville? And the reason you guys settle on down there because the metropolitan area is so expensive?
Yeah, we were able to get the land for way less
And you
expensive.
found people just didn't give a shit. They'd drive to park it that far down there just to save money.
Yeah, and we found there's a couple lakes up there, which is kind of, again, we were focused on lakes, and that's kind of why we were looking that way. You've got Tim's Ford and Normandy Lake, only like 15, 20 minutes from there. So that was kind of our thought. But we came to find out that there's so many of these RV people that, one, that they just can't find anywhere to put them. And two, I'm asked like, why'd you pick our facility? It's like, man, we use our RV 2-3 times a year to keep it inside and out of the weather. To drive an hour to pick it up for our trips 3 times a year is not a big deal. So they're not actively using it. The boat people, we're kind of locked into the people that use that lake, because you're not going to store your boat in Manchester and use it, at Percy Priest. It wouldn't make any sense. So that's why we get so many RV people, because they don't care to drive an hour and a half to get their RV when they just use it a couple times a year.
Yeah, it's interesting when you open up a business, what you don't realize will come in. Like, I never thought for a second that we would get more gym pop people at my gym than like more of the serious people, but it's really, we get more
Because you
gym
don't
pop
have
people.
storage units for steroids.
We have storage for sale. But it's like,
What are gym pop people?
yeah, like general
The us
population.
Baker.
Gin
You
pop.
guys,
It's what they call us
normies.
normies.
Well, I thought
You normies.
I thought you said gym like
Like,
GYM,
no.
not gym. Okay.
No,
They have all these names for us.
Yeah, but no, it's like when you gotta go in there, and it's different. Like when you run a business, and I know you've seen this because you sold some. Like oftentimes, who you're really trying to attract is not who you attract. Where you uncover gold over here, and find out, well, hell, most people who are normies would like meals, so I'll just have meals at my gym. Like, and you could kind of vertically integrate your way out.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool that you like did that, and it lets people see who own a business. You might niche down to one thing, and then there's also this other like little golden opportunity over here that's very niche too.
Yeah.
That presents itself for you to make a cash cow on.
Yeah, it's funny. We
Over
have,
time.
out of the 58 units, we probably have maybe 10 boats in there, and it's all RVs. A lot of antique car guys, sports car guys that don't have anywhere to put their stuff.
Yeah, I thought about storing my Supra
Yeah.
over time. Like as it gets a little bit, like once it gets near like 40 or 50,000 miles, probably like
Yeah.
storing it. Yeah, no, you're right.
Or selling it and investing the money
No, I
into
will never
something.
ever do that. Well, this guy gives me hell all the time. He's like, man, we could do with that 60 grand. I'm like, it's a 70 now with my upgrades. I'll have you know, but but it's one of those like can't take it with you. And I think that to me is some of the joy of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I like having a nice car. It was something I wanted when I was 15, and it was super cool to be at 29 years old living on my friend's floor on an air mattress to then one day being able to buy that car and be like, fuck yeah, it was a little reward for all the bullshit. And I think it's balance. Like I respect you immensely because you're willing to commit that hard to save that much money. So I look at that as a very disciplined trait where I'm like, nope, I'm a little sloppy. I want to have a nice car and, like wear new pair of Jordans and stuff like that. And I admire that. I wish I had that kind of minimalism. I'd probably be better in business. Yeah. But I do think that's a big thing with it.
Hey, Baker Reynolds, appreciate you listening to the episode. If you want to check out the storage facility, it's vaultstoragetn.com. And on the real estate side of things, look at moveuphomegroup.com. We do kind of the Middle Tennessee area here. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Bakeman22.
What is up, everyone? Today I bring to you one of my favorite new ethics supplements, liposomal L-carnitine. You put this underneath your tongue. Now, I used to be a big fan of the injectable version. It's great for burning fat. It's probably my favorite thing I use in my competitors, but I get tired of shots. So my good buddy Jason Theobald Scoob developed a liposomal version for us that we put underneath our tongues. Works just as well. I take it pre-workout. It helps with energy. It helps you with burning fat. It has L-carnitine takes the fat in your bloodstream. It helps take it to your mitochondria, the powerhouse of your cell, to be destroyed. It is a can't miss if you're looking for a bump in performance. If you're on TRT therapy, this is a little turbocharged, like I put a turbo on my Supra. You want to put that on your testosterone. Be sure to check them out. Relentless 10's the discount code. All we ask is this: they sponsor our show. They sponsor me as an athlete. Give their products a fair try. If you're currently taking supplements, I guarantee you won't be disappointed in what you achieve. Let's have a talk. Men have low T. It is a phenomenon. Testosterone got such a dirty name for itself. But guys, vitamin T is here and it's here to win for you. If you're curious if you have low T and you've been thinking about it, you're listless, you have depressive symptoms, you're just not really just who you used to be. Maybe you've lost some of that vigor. Our friends at Advanced Vitality, HRT.com, are offering $25 off your most recent blood work. Here's the deal. They're not going to push it on you because TRT therapy isn't for everybody. I've seen this before. But there's nothing wrong with getting a look underneath your hood, see what's going on, and getting a peace of mind. If your general practitioner has told you recently your testosterone levels are normal, you definitely want to call them because they don't know what they're talking about. With that being said, if you're interested in more, check out my website, brittletounbreakable.com. On there, you can see our sponsors, Advanced Vitality, HRT. Fill out the form. They'll be more than happy to give you $25 off and do a consultation on your lab work. Just check them out. Sponsor our show. It's always worth checking into. So I wrote a book about my life that's kind of maybe cool. I don't know. So I was born with a rare bone disease, osteogenesis imperfecta. Kind of got bullied in life and ended up finding bodybuilding. Along the way, I was massively depressed, suicidal, ended up attempting it, and then decided to live life free. Along the way, I used psychedelics to heal and solve for my problem that was depression. It is a raw journaling session. If you were to ever ask how to journal, read my book. It's a good way to understand what journaling would look like. It is a autobiography that can't resist being a self-help book. At brittletounbreakable.com, you can get the pre-orders. I'm shipping in April. Appreciate your support. Every one is signed by me, and I'll even put a little smiley face in there for you if you wanted to. Look, if you're looking to up your business, check out Cinema 83, Logan Hyder. He is someone that will help not only enhance your brand, but diversify your brand and your portfolio for what you can offer people who are looking to find more content from you in a field that is ever crowded. He will help you stand out. Check him out, Cinema 83.
So, Jeff, if you're going to splurge on a car, though, a Toyota? A Toyota
Supra. It's iconic.
Oh, okay. It's a Supra.
It is.
Yeah,
they have not made any since like 1996. I mean, I always wanted to
Were
be
they out of Corollas?
No. Listen, this is my homage to Paul Walker, R.I.P. Like, Fast Furious. Yeah. All right. That's a song. Just one. Yeah. No, it's just sad.
It's the same movie over and over. Spoiler alert.
But I'm on Jeff's side on that, though. You gotta. That's the reason we're pushing so hard, right? Just to have a little balance and be able to spend a little money. I know
you got a big old Toyota truck, though. Like I respect the truck a little bit more than the Supra.
Yeah. Well, it's got 200,000 miles on it, so.
We're gonna compare miles then. I think I'm right there with you. So back to the real conversation. We'll give Jeff a break for a bit.
Thanks, guys.
I teased this a few moments ago, but Baker, you went into another business shortly thereafter. Tell us a little bit about, that business, how you got into it, what happened. Just give us the whole story.
Yeah. So, we wrapped up the first phase of the storage facility, filled up the units. Like I said, we opened up in May. We were full by October. So we were, on cloud nine. So why not try something else, right? And with that, why not make it something completely opposite? So you got the storage facility that's hands off, kind of a real estate deal. Why don't we get into trucking where there's a cajillion moving parts? So I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm driving around, and heard a podcast about the freight industry and owning your own semi trucks and running them over the road. And it sounded exciting, and met with another buddy of mine and talked to him about it, because he'd been wanting to, after we did the storage facility, he's like, hey man, if you ever do anything else, like it'd be cool to try to do something together. And so I approached him with the trucking idea, and he had two other buddies that wanted to get in on it. So we figured if there's four of us, then we can all financially back it somewhat safely. And so we
had so many questions.
started tackling
Like,
that.
how did it work with four owners? Like, how did you guys decide that? I had panic attacks back when I had my one partner.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been fortunate with so far, is the people that we've gone in business with have been very level-headed. We've stayed friends throughout it, in the good or bad. All four of us, we had multiple meetings and conversations about it on whether or not we'd fit together. Worst case scenarios, best case scenarios. Like, we don't want to go into this thing if everybody's not going to respect each other and make decisions together as a team. And we just all fortunately meshed really well. So.
Yeah. So what happened? You get this idea, you agree to go after it. What's step one?
So again, we had no idea what we were doing, right? Going into a trucking industry. We started looking around. The first thing we needed to do was find a dispatcher that could run our trucks and communicate to the drivers. So we found this lady through, I don't even really remember how. I think it was just through conversations with people. Got in touch with her, and she was a rock star. So she set up all of our legal requirements for like DOT and all that stuff, paved the way for us to be compliant with running a truck in the first place. And so once she got our business compliant, we were able to buy our first truck, and then we had to identify a driver. And she had a driver that was running with a different company that wasn't happy with the company. And so she's like, he's been great. He's wide open. He'll swap over to y'all if y'all get him a truck. So purchased a truck, put him in it. And we started running. And the next side of that is what are we going to haul? And fortunately she had a steel contract with a company that was running steel from Kansas City to Virginia that was supposed to last. So this is October, supposed to last until at least May, is what we were told at first. So that ended up not happening. But we put them on those to start, and I don't know how much you want me to ramble. I'm going to keep rolling on it. So
I want to hear this, because the more gory it gets, the more people attach to the story.
So we started running that first truck, and the goal, we communicated with the driver. His goal was to make $2,500 a month take home. And we paid him 25%, and that's per week. And so the goal was to make the truck generate $10,000 a week, which sounded like a lot when we were first. I mean, that's $40,000 a month. That's a lot of money. But we started running those steel runs, and first week made like $13,000. Second week made 12. Third week was 17. Fourth week was like 16. So we were crushing it. And we had Angela, our dispatcher, contact the steel company and see if we had another truck, could we run another one side by side with them? And they said they had plenty of freight for that. So we jumped right in, and I guess so from October, I believe we bought our second truck in December. And so we were running 2 trucks.
Expansion.
Yeah, that was
December 2020.
And you just pointed at me.
21.
21. Okay.
You said that was
That was maybe part of our problem, growing too fast. So fortunately with this contract, they supplied the trailers, the flatbeds, and we just had to provide the trucks. So we were only in it for 2 trucks. They were running, and then we hit kind of a roadblock on that contract for whatever reason. It's still kind of unclear, but we hit like February and didn't have any more steel to run. So then we just started running off the load boards, which aren't as profitable per mile. And at that time, we were in the process of buying our 3rd truck. And so
how much is a truck?
So at the time, we bought when they were high. And we were buying them used. So we spent $89,000 on one.
You guys spent the money, or you got loans?
We
to
got
spend money?
loans.
Okay.
So the first one we were able to get 0 down on the truck, $89,000 truck. So we had a note on that truck. Second one we had to put, I believe, 30% down, which between the 4 of us wasn't too terrible. And it was a $92,000 truck. And then we had a $45,000 truck that we bought for the driver that we started with. He wanted an older Peterbilt. And that was also another mistake we made, was buying that truck.
Why?
So we bought it out of Florida, and they claimed it had 400,000 miles on it. And we bought it sight unseen. We had someone inspect the truck in Florida. They brought up a few things that could be wrong with it, minor things. So we got those fixed. And he ran that truck for 3 weeks, and it went into the shop, and we had to spend $40,000 on it.
Oh,
And we found out that it wasn't 400,000 miles. It was 1.4 million miles.
oh, wow! Is there any recourse to that?
Later down the road, we got into a legal battle with the person that sold us the truck, and we got the repairs back. It was about all we got. But the value of the truck was gone because it had 1.4 million miles on it at that point. And
On a side note, the best Married with Children episode ever is when, what is it, Ed O'Neill, what's his name?
Al Bundy.
Al Bundy gets his Dodge to cross over 1 million miles. I don't know why, but if you ever watch it, that's the best one. Yeah.
yeah. So
So you've got 3 trucks.
3 trucks.
December 2021, right?
2021 December we had 2, and we got the 3rd truck, I believe, in February of.
So the 3rd truck you get it. So by March you realize, shit.
So we're still pretty excited at that point. But we had to buy trailers now because we lost that contract with the steel company. So you can run what they call power only, which is just the truck, and pick up, use other people's trailers that are preloaded, like dry van stuff. It's not as profitable. So we wanted to be as profitable as we could, of course. So we figured the expense of buying a flatbed trailer, and we found out I was trying to take what I learned from the storage facility and put it into the trucking industry, which flatbeds, they pay more because there's less of them out there. Like you see the dry van stuff, like the big white boxes behind them, right? The dry van stuff's all over the place, but the flatbed stuff is a little bit more rare, so they pay a little more for the loads. So we were trying to go toward the niche of the industry, and so we bought 2 trailers, and so we let one run power only, and then we had 2 flatbeds, and we were just running off the load board. And then when we got into like March is when things really started to turn for the worse.
How so?
So we were averaging around $4 a mile for the loads that we were carrying. So if we, went $4 a mile at the time was pretty solid. It covered all the expenses we needed, the fuel, the pay the driver, pay the dispatcher, any kind of maintenance stuff we had to go on. And that slowly trickled to $2 a mile.
Oh, what made that happen? Is something in the economy?
The whole industry was in a bind.
Why?
So part of we don't blame a ton of our approach on our failure on this. We kind of hit the trucking industry at a tough time. And there's tons of theories on why it all tanked, right? So, who knows why, but the rates were down to 2 instead of 4. So we were making half the income. At that time, we went from what we were paying in diesel fuel was $2 more a gallon hitting into that spring. So we were paying almost $10,000 more per truck.
Economics right there for you.
It's the Bidenomics for sure. So we were cut in half on what we were able to generate per mile. We were also spending $2 a gallon more on a truck that gets 5 miles a gallon. So we were spending around $10,000 more per truck in fuel a month. So we had about $30,000 a month in expenses that we weren't accounting for. On top of, instead of us making that 10 to 15 grand a week, we were making like 7 to 9. And so it was kind of a perfect storm where we were just driving down, and everything was kind of turning at that point.
How long, by March, how long until you guys actually sat down and said, we either have to like shut this down or skim it down to one truck, restart? Did you guys try like any saving operations, I guess, like before you threw the baby out with the bathwater kind of approach?
So our first kind of attack on the situation was we need to land another contract.
Okay.
Because as we were kind of studying up on, the best techniques in the freight world is if you can land contracts, you at least have, like, you can budget a lot easier, right? Because you have these loads for 6 months, they're going to pay this. So now you just work on your expenses because you know what you're going to generate. The issue was our first driver that we thought was a rock star. He was a rock star because he was driving over hours. So you can only drive a certain amount of hours a day.
That's
and
you have to part of the transportation.
You have to shut down. Yeah. And so he got pulled over a few times, and on his log, he'd been running for way longer than he should. So we have what's called an authority is what we run under in the trucking industry. And you almost get like a credit score. So like when you get pinged with different, negative things from the DOT, like your credit score goes down. And so when we were approaching these different companies to get contracts, they would pull our authority and be like, y'all have had this, too many violations. There's other companies we'd rather go with. Oof. So we were coming to them with 3 trucks thinking that was going to be, 3 trucks, 2 trailers, we're flatbed, we can run whatever. But we couldn't land a contract because our authority was hit too many times with violations. So after about a month of learning that we were just going to have to keep day by day running off a load board and not really knowing where the next dollar was coming from, we decided we needed to get rid of the driver that was affecting our authority. So we had that conversation. That was my first firing. And
how did he feel?
It was terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty.
So he was like if you could imagine, like, he was from Massachusetts, but he lived in Florida. So he was like a redneck northerner that kind of looked like Post Malone, but he's a truck driver.
Was he big? Big guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's like 6'4". Big dude.
You're like, he's going to whip my ass.
Big dude.
So you did this over the phone.
I did. Well, so here's the strategy. One of the harder things we learned is how do you get these drivers out of the truck to fire them?
That's what I was thinking. Like, how do you get them not to take the truck out with them?
Because they drive 3 weeks at a time and take a week off, but they take their truck home. Mm-hmm. And so on their week break, their truck's with them at their house. And so it's like, how do we get them out of the truck? And that was when that truck we put them in went down. And so we put it in at Rush Truck Center here in Nashville. We're like, we're just going to fly you home. They said it's going to be a couple weeks. Like, we'll fly you home. We'll give you a week's pay while this truck's getting worked on. There's no reason for you to just like sit around Nashville, get back to your family, So we flew him down there. And then after that week, we called him and let him know we weren't going to fly him back. the
How do you take
conversation.
it? How'd that go?
He was like, "Hey, you! After everything I've done for you, I've made all this money for y'all. You're just gonna f me like this, and put me out on the streets and stuff." It was like, and we'd had many conversations with him before that, right? I'd passed through all that, but we'd had 3 or 4 different conversations. Like, Josh, you got to start running legal. You're killing our business, and he just never did it. So
And they can only run, what, 8 hours?
So, I was gonna say, no, I'm not mistaken. Some of the newer trucks, do they just turn off by themselves at a certain point, or am I totally?
no, so they have e-logs now, where the older trucks had paper logs, so you can manufacture a paper log pretty easy. But now you're like, when your truck is rolling, it's clocking, so you can't really cheat the system anymore.
And after how many hours does it shut?
I believe it was 10.
Okay.
So
I think it was.
you had the 4 guys in it. You were the one who did the firing. So were you running the day-to-day as well, or what was everyone's role?
Yeah, so there's a lot to managing kind of the trucking company. So having 4 people worked out nice, because I had a buddy of mine that's super kind of analytical into the numbers. So he was working on our spreadsheets and paying the drivers and paying all of our different expenses every week. So he kind of handled the books. We had one of the guys handled our compliance, just to make sure, monthly we kept in compliance with any DOT regulations. And then Brenton, he's more of a car guy, so he kept up with all the maintenance stuff on the trucks, communicated with the service centers when the trucks were in for service, because he understood a lot of the stuff they were talking about that we needed done on the trucks. And then I was the communicator with the dispatcher and the drivers.
Got it.
So I was kind of the communicator, I guess, on the day-to-day stuff.
So is this your first time managing people?
It is.
So what were the things you learned that you didn't know going into it? And especially because you were managing from a distance, you weren't seeing them face to face.
I think I learned how to grow a backbone, because before then I just I let him walk all over, especially that first guy, Josh. Like, he'd walk all over me. He'd tell me stuff. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. That's
You're just like, yeah, that
sounds good.
Sounds great.
Like, I'm like, hey, Josh, it looks like your computer was shut off last night in Virginia and you woke up in Kentucky. Are you sure you're still driving? Yeah, I don't know why that happened. I'm driving good, boss. I'm not doing anything wrong." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I just had full trust in him, and I let him walk all over me. I didn't really verify anything he was saying, which is part of what maybe put us in that position. But
Yeah. What about with the other guys? Anything you learned, managing from a distance that you wish you would have done differently?
the other 2 guys were pretty good. I think I learned with Josh because he was our first guy, as I grew with him and we hired the other 2 guys, just communication and understanding with each other. So I just kind of stayed in constant contact with them, whether it was text or call, or see if they're good, because driving on the road, it gets pretty lonely. The third guy we hired second guy we hired was a 19-year-old kid. And so he started getting a little bit in the weeds on getting super lonely, because he was on the road for 3 weeks and was able to get back home for a week to his family, and it started really wearing on him. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of his struggle with it. And I think just staying in communication and being understanding with him helped. But
Bit of a counselor as well.
I got into more phone calls on stuff I shouldn't have been talking about, when I should have been managing my day-to-day job a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, now I'll stop calling Jeff when I have a rough day and dial you up. Yeah.
I want to ask a question while we're talking about that. You brought up managing people. What was it like managing a partnership of 4? What did you guys do? Did you guys meet weekly, monthly? How did you guys really navigate that? Because, no offense, everyone's always told in business, don't go into business with your friends.
Yeah.
Don't go into business with your family. You've broken every rule so far that I've heard. So how did, and you said that even if they failed miserably, you guys are still friends. So how did you guys manage to, I guess, remove the emotions enough to actually execute as a business, which a business needs to be emotionless? I say that. I'm like, it's good for you to be passionate about it, but your business has emotions, it will die.
Yeah.
A cruel death.
It was a combination of maybe communication, and before we even got into it, we wanted to make sure, like, not only are all four of us all in on this, are all four of our wives all in on this. We didn't want to disrupt any kind of family dynamics if things got bad. So everybody's wives were on board behind us. We all kind of had like a limit to where we wanted to be. Like we all started by putting $10,000 in as kind of a buffer, which we thought was going to be plenty in the account, but that just ended up not being the case. But we kind of had kind of like if we get to 30 grand out of pocket each and it's not trending upward, we need to have like a serious conversation about it. So from a financial standpoint, we kind of laid that out on the table early. And then we had a group text where we were communicating every day. And we tried to meet every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we met on an evening, and everybody had their roles and understood their roles. You know, Brenton came in with the maintenance reports. Max came in with all the compliance stuff. I had any updates on the drivers, and Chris had all the financials, and we just knew our duties, and fortunately everybody stayed on top of it.
How long before you guys decided to pull the pin? And what ultimately led you to pull the pin?
So after that old truck went down, the first truck we bought went down.
So you're left with one truck.
Well, we got the old one back running.
Okay.
But that green truck went down, and that we called the Hulk. And at that point, it came back and needed like 8,000 repairs, and the trailer that was on its back needed like $5,000 in repairs. And we were all already, it just kind of worked. The timing worked out. We were 2-3 weeks before that, we met. We're like, look, our numbers are trending way down. If we don't either land a contract or see any kind of different trend, we just need to pull. So that next 2 weeks, that truck went down, that trailer went down, and we were all just like, we've got to get out as smoothly as possible at this point. And that was probably June of that same year.
And what was your exit strategy?
Just try to get out of the trucks as quick as possible. The issue was for whatever reason we bought high, and the trucking prices were plummeting and trailer prices were plummeting, all kind of at the same time. So we had to take huge hits on everything we bought.
So when you guys started having those tough conversations, did anyone get emotional? Was anyone yelling? What was the environment like?
It was like Wolf of Wall Street.
No. Hey guys, not fucking leaving. This is gonna work because we had dreams, right?
Yeah,
like that. October, November, we were making like $15,000 a week.
You're going to be the next yellow trucking.
We were like, our goal by the end of that year. So we were hitting our New Year's like resolutions together. Like, all right, we're crushing it so far.
Yeah.
Let's try to get to 10 trucks by the end of 2022. That was where we were trending, and we were all thinking, all right, we get to that point, we're going to be
millionaires.
We're going to be
private
cruising.
jets, baby, posing in front of McLaren.
We're going to be cruising. I was already talking about quitting my 9-to-5 job and
buying a Supra.
Buying 2 Supras.
Yeah, too.
No, and I was going to quit my 9-to-5 because I was kind of getting to a dead end at that job, and I was like, well, I'll start helping Angela. I want to understand the dispatch side of it. I'll start dispatching and running the drivers to kind of lean us up on that because we had to pay her, and I was like, we're going to be cruising in like 10 months. It's just a matter of time. So that I think it was from an ego standpoint, it was harder than anything for all of us.
No, you mind? We only have a couple minutes, but I was just wanting to bring up that emotions. I think that was such a good point. Like, even like sitting here watching, you can kind of see like it hurts.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? So I think we can talk about that a little bit. Like whenever something like that happens.
Yeah.
Whatever. You good?
Good now.
No, go. Yeah.
We're still rolling.
Roll, you got a few minutes left, buddy. Come on, Tiger.
Yeah, no. So I mean, we were just like super defeated, right? Because we told everybody. I told my brother and my family and all my friends, like, we're running this trucking company. We're killing it. we just added a second truck. We just added a third truck. We're all talking it up. We're excited. And for it to so quickly turn from October, November, December, we're on such a high. And then in 5 months, we were just burning. Mm-hmm. And I think we were all emotional, but fortunately we were all level headed enough to understand that we had a job to do until it was done. We had to get out, because if we just kept staying in, we were going to keep burning. And so we had that conversation. You could tell we were all going home to our wives with our tails tucked between our legs. And it's not easy to go home and say, hey, we're losing a ton of money and we're crashing and we got to bail out of this thing.
What'd your wife say?
She said he tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you can't, especially with the environment of the trucking industry, and all the articles coming out were businesses shutting down and trucking companies shutting down that had been around for a long time. And she's like, y'all went in with a game plan and the environment of the economy changed, and you had some bad luck with a couple trucks that went down. And just like, you shouldn't be upset with yourself for trying, because you had the game plan. It just didn't pan out. But I love my wife for saying that, but it's hard for me to accept that I failed. Right? It's like, okay, I appreciate the positivity around the failure, but I still feel like I led you and our family down a path that costed us time and money. We had to just regroup and get out of it as quickly as possible, because we were going to keep burning. And it's easy to say, well, we learned along the way, and that's what we kept saying. Learn a lot along the way, and felt like we had a good game plan. But still, behind, I think all four of us, we were emotionally pretty shattered, and it was in the back of my mind, it was like I completely failed and cost my family a ton of money on this. And so that was still kind of hard for me to swallow. I can put on a front and say, hey, it's no big deal. We tried, we learned a lot. You're not going to win them all, but it hurts. So we ended up selling all the trucks for a loss. We finally got rid of the last trailer. It took forever to sell it. I think January of 23.
Wow.
So we held on. We didn't sell the last truck until October. So it was just sitting in a storage facility, and we were paying insurance on it and paying the note.
So we talked about on our last episode, the difference between entrepreneurs and corporate folk is the willingness to take risk, the willingness to fail. How do you get past that and make sure that you're ready to take that next swing when it comes up?
No, man.
Well, I just searched for another momentum builder, which fortunately for us, we were adding on to phase 2 for the storage facility. So we got that back up and going. Cause it's hard to, you get in your head like, all right, well, maybe I can't run businesses anymore. Like, even though the storage facility's gone well, maybe that was a fluke, and I'm not cut out for it in the long run. So getting back to developing phase 2 of the storage facility kind of helped generate that energy that I had for trying to start stuff, and got me back on track, I guess. It's so now we're looking for the next thing, whatever that may be.
What interests you?
What interests me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you could abstractly just say now, like, what's an interest that you're like, I would start beginning to look down this road to see what's out there?
To grow a business in or invest in?
Yeah, to grow a business, invest, any.
I think currently we're, until something really opens up to us, I think we're just going to continue to try to build the storage facility stuff. My business partner in that and I now we're looking for another property And like I said, now that we're stable, because we're all 58 of our units are full, and so we're generating a decent amount a month. So we're looking to find a property that makes sense to reinvest and borrow against that property to build another one. We looked into, I've got a couple of rental houses and single family homes and stuff, and we thought about doing duplex stuff or multifamily, but just from a headache standpoint, there's just a lot more moving parts to that than the storage facility.
You don't feel like you're Maverick after he loses Goose and he's up there with Viper and Merlin and won't re-engage? You don't feel like it's one of those moments? You're just really you're okay with jumping back in and getting your ass kicked if need been?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be trucking. I can tell you what it's not going to be.
So we already know you've decided to take on major risk again. You've decided to put yourself out there. You left your 9-to-5. You went full-time in real estate. What was that mental shift to allow you to go and say, you know what, I'm just going to fight my way into this industry now?
It's competitive as hell here in Nashville. I train a few realtors, so I know.
40,000 licensed agents or something? And it's something insane.
Ridiculous here, man.
You're sitting across from one. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even talk about his license. You're also licensed commercial too, right?
Well, it's the same license,
same
but I don't
license.
do residential. Baker and I are different.
Yeah, he's
He
commercial.
can't handle residential.
No, he probably couldn't. He'd be pissed if the moment a woman was like, or a man was like, well, the toilet's not where I want it to be.
You have to take those pictures where you lean back really far, and I'm afraid of hurting my back.
Yeah. So yeah, it's easy to start stuff when you don't have a family, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I was with the storage facility and the trucking company. It was me and my wife. So people will lean on the fact that it was easy to take risks without kids or whatever. But my wife and I got pregnant in last year, and so we decided that, I decided that I wanted to move into something that would give me more time with her and with our son now. And I was at my 9-to-5 job. I'd been there for 5 years, kind of grown it to where I could grow it. And it was obvious that they let me know I was kind of at my ceiling. I couldn't really go anywhere from where I was at. So if I stayed there for 10 more years, I'd be making the exact same amount, selling boats. So it's 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Just a ton of time without feeling like I was accomplishing a whole lot. So we started digging into what it would look like for me to get into something else. And through the development of the storage facility, I really enjoyed that process. So my mind first went to commercial real estate, and so I had a conversation with my wife. I'm like, let's try it. So I started taking my classes to get my license, and again, thought I was going to do commercial real estate. And then 2 weeks before I took my test, I ran into a guy that is running a small brokerage in Murfreesboro under the Keller Williams umbrella. It's called Move Up Home Group. And he's like, yeah, here's what we got going on. We've got somebody in Murfreesboro, Mount Juliet, Nashville, down in Manchester, and we kind of have a hole in like that Franklin Brentwood area. And I was like, well, that's where I live. So I feel like I'd be a good fit for that, because I didn't want to just get my license, quit my job, and be like, hey, everybody on social media, I'm a realtor.
You start DMing
I'm suddenly
everyone.
an expert.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a direction, and when I met him, they've got a process and they've got a team environment behind it and kind of a direction. So talked with my wife. It's like, this is the perfect timing for me to jump. So going from a stable income to no guarantee now. So we're jumping off another cliff of financial risk for us. But I think it's going to be a slow roll into it. We prepared ourselves for the first 3 or 4 months to be pretty, slow from a financial standpoint on my end, but we think long term it'll give me the ability to spend more family time with them and hopefully have a higher ceiling than where I was. So
Getting all introspective for a second, what do you think makes you comfortable with taking that next risk, that next chance, even though you've had a failure, versus the folks who sit there and talk about it all the time but never do anything?
yeah, I've been pretty good at taking action about what I talk about just throughout my life. I think after that failure, it's a different story. I think my wife is what's pushing me to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I can believe in myself to a certain degree. Not so much after a failure like the trucking company, but with her behind me, like reminding me, like you're outgoing. You've got a good drive. There's not a ton of people that have the potential that you have. Just go do it. Okay. And so I think that's been, in the tough times, I think she's been like a huge lifter and pusher on me, getting out of my comfort zone.
It's a very important point, I think, for entrepreneurs to understand, even if you're single, having just someone in your corner that kind of still hypes you up, because, at least once a day, and people might say I'm successful in business, but at least once a day, I kind of doubt myself a little bit. I'm like, as I'm pondering where I want to go, there's always that doubt. And then there's later a conversation with my wife where I'll talk about it. She's like, you gotten this far. She's like, worst case is you bounce back. And I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? But I think that's really important. Outside of your wife, was anyone else really like helping you and hyping you up and like really that you could count on? Like, say your wife was just like, hey, Baker, I don't want to talk to you today. You've snibbled enough for the week. Go find one of your peasant friends. Is there someone else in your corner that you could go talk to and really kind of get set straight, like a mentor maybe, or someone like that you had in business?
Yeah, I mean, the family's always behind me, right? But it's hard to, take. They're always going to be positive for the most part. Right. If they're they've been supportive my whole life, so they're going to be positive behind it. So it's hard to really take that as encouragement. But Chris, the guy that I did the trucking company with, he and I grew a ton throughout that trucking situation. And so he and I kind of lean on each other for that encouragement and that drive for each other. We're texting each other weekly, kind of seeing where we are on our goals. And are you still getting to the gym? Did you do what you said you were going to do this week kind of thing? So I think he and I probably are leaning on each other outside of our family and wives. I would say that we hold each other accountable. So that's kind of where I find it outside of family.
I would have expected you to have more gray hairs based on some of the things you've been through recently and having a young one. Yeah.
Funny story. When we were in the just thick of the trucking situation, my hair fell out.
Really?
In the back of my head.
Wow.
Like a hole. I blamed it on the lady that cut my hair. It was like she cut a huge hole in my head.
Yeah.
And
you became a hat guy.
Yeah. And it didn't grow back. So I went to the doctor. They're like, yeah, it's a form of alopecia that comes through stress.
Wow.
No. Just fell out. It literally looked like somebody shaved it.
Did you feel stressed?
Yeah.
Wait,
Next question.
I told the doctor, I was like, I've been pretty stressed. I didn't know I was hair falling out stressed.
Mm-hmm. Did that put that in perspective to you? Like how much you really have to give to try to be successful. Like most people don't get that. And that's always been my thing. We listen to Andy Frisella. We know that whole social media bullshit with entrepreneurship's really fucking fake. Yeah. Like it really is. Was it knowing that stress, is it still worth it for you to potentially go in? Because no matter what you decide in business, there's always the chance it won't work.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's, it's kind of like watching a football game, right? Like you can watch the replay and be like, he had a wide open receiver right there. Why didn't he just throw it to him? Like it's easy to look back on the trucking company, and we probably shouldn't have grown that fast. We probably should have kept that one truck running for 6 months and regrouped then and just kind of played it safe. But from that, really, to me, when you're attacking a business like that, you take the facts you have in front of you and you make the best educated decision you can with the facts that you have and see what happens. It's easy to look back and say, well, if we would have just approached it this way, it would have gone way better. But we didn't have that information in front of us at the time, so we were doing what we could to make it work.
Shoot or shoot, baby.
So going back to the football analogy, you didn't just walk out and say, you know what, I'm going to play quarterback. I'm going to try and score a touchdown every play. Every time you talked about it, you said, I heard this, I researched, I found information. I really worked hard to make sure I was comfortable with it. What were those steps you generally took anytime you're considering an idea to help build a framework in your head?
Yeah, now it's kind of shifted into a ton of podcast related stuff. So with the trucking company, I mean, I spent probably 3 or 4 months, daily listening to the freight industry podcasts and following, business Instagram pages of the trucking companies and just trying to dive in as much as I could, even though a lot of the stuff I was hearing and reading, I didn't really understand at that time. Just any and all information I could just load into my head to just have as much understanding as I could, I guess, just kind of information overload without getting too deep in the weeds on it, I guess, just trying to absorb as much as I can in a specific time frame and then go after it.
Yeah. And that's the important thing is I think a lot of people might hear it and say, man, he's went up and he went after it. No, you put in work to make sure you understood at least on some level before you ever took that risk. So it's not stupid risk at that point. It's still risk, but it's not reckless.
Right.
Did you go to any master classes? Did you hire a business coach? Did you go to any Tony Robbins NLP events where they snapped at you or you had to walk across fire to prove your worth?
I did not.
Okay. So that's what I love more about your story. You didn't have a fucking mentor, which what everyone usually has to say they have to be successful. And you didn't go to seek out anything else. You actually went and did your own research, had your own conversations, and went and applied it, and you didn't spend any money to find these answers out for yourself. Right. Like, I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And I think that's what everyone's trying to avoid. Like, I think it's a great thing that I have probably now at least 100K worth of screw ups in my 9 years of business to be able to be like you said, I learned a lot of ways not to do it, but that's what's made it interesting to me. And that's what's kept me engaged. And I think a lot of people, they're always looking for the passion of the money. And I always looked at it as the passion of the failure. Like how quickly could I account for X with the most amount of pain, but the least amount of expense,
Fail fast.
Yeah, fail fast, fail forward,
Forward,
yeah, John Maxwell.
And I was trying to, the things I've taken on so far have been things that I've been able to continue to keep my 9-to-5 job on, because I always wanted to have that, that backing, that financial backing, whether it not be a whole lot, but at least it's a steady income coming in. So I wasn't like up and quitting my job and making super reckless decisions. I held on to my 9-to-5 and did what I could to work on these businesses outside of those hours. But I think that helped the mental too.
Yeah. I mean, you work your ass off. You say, you know what, I'm going to work 6 days a week, which already you're working more than 99% of people out there. And then on top of that, you said, I'm going to start a business and then I'm going to knock up my wife. Yeah. And yet there was never a time where I heard you say, I didn't have enough time to work on this, or I didn't have enough time to figure it out. It was just, this is what we had to do.
Yeah. And he did good on the home front because he had a wife that was supportive of him, not being like, well, why you keep not spending any time or focus on me? So, I mean, he really did good in a lot of areas.
And I'm pretty sure at this time, you and I were working out in the morning. Jeff was training us and you were doing 75 hard through some of this trucking stuff too. Like it was absurd.
You were doing 75 hard around when I was doing it.
When we started the trucking company that January, I started 75 hard.
Yeah, because I started February. You were ahead of me.
Yeah, like again, that January, like I was king of the world. We were crushing. The storage facility was full. Trucking company was rolling. I was on 75 hard, feeling like a giant. Like I was untouchable. And then I learned that I am very touchable.
But that's the thing. I would argue now you're more resilient than you ever would have been.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to that first time you get dumped, you get crushed and your self-worth goes to zero. Then slowly it builds back up and it never really goes back down again. It doesn't matter how many times you get dumped. Yeah.
I'm going to ask my final question. I'll let you have your final two or so, because I love what you had to say. Like, I actually know you on a deeper level other than just yelling at you for not hitting your macros and that you could have pushed more.
I didn't do very well at that.
Yeah,
Did you ever do that?
No, he did for a run when he was when he was running that stuff. Like, he crushed me.
For 3 or 4 weeks, I was all over sending the macros, and I was like, I don't know.
What advice would you give someone who's listening to this, who's in a tough spot with their business? knowing what you know now? Like if I'm listening to this and I don't know if I want to keep going forward, what would you tell that person?
I think it goes back to kind of what I said earlier is just you have to lay out all of the information you have in front of you, control the controllables, and make decisions off what's in directly in front of you and not what ifs and what can be's. You just have to, like you said, kind of be emotionless with it. You just look at the numbers and look at how your strategy's going. And if it's not working, pivot on how you think you need to pivot with the information you have in front of you. I mean, there's not really a crystal ball to anything. You just have to keep moving forward. I would say the biggest thing is just don't stop. You just have to keep moving forward. And if you keep moving forward and it's a failure, then you're past it. If you stop, you'll never know if you would have kept going, if it would have turned around or not.
Good points, because that's the truth.
So I got 2 questions. They're going to go back to back and relate. The first one is, would you ever go out and do something on your own, or do you always see yourself working with a partner or a team?
I think with my personality, I've found that working with someone is super beneficial.
Why?
I don't know if I can put a finger on the exact reason. I like to be able to have somebody to bounce stuff off of.
I agree.
I like a different perspective. I like the reassurance, of, like I said, with Ryan and I in the storage facility, like I would be super down, ready to just stop, and he'd pull me out of the dirt, right? And then he'd be down, I'd pull him out of the dirt. I think for me, it helps, 1, keep me accountable, and 2, just kind of keep my head focused on the goal ahead. So I don't know if I'll ever do anything strictly on my own. Maybe with, my wife and I may tackle something together. But as far as me just getting out on my own, I think there's a lot of value to another perspective.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
If it could be managed, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
All right, last one. This is a tough one. So you have these friends, this network that you've built, that you've worked with, all these different contacts. How have you nurtured those relationships? Because now you're going into an industry that's all network, personal relationship built. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis to stay in touch, to really build those relationships?
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody gets busy, especially now with a 6-month-old at home. I'm busy. I have a rule. My wife and I have a rule that if we ever get, invited to something by somebody, never say no twice. Like we always just, whether we're busy or not, we get invited to something, we just need to go. And whether it's supporting somebody's birthday, supporting somebody's business launch, or customer appreciation, or whatever that may look like in your friend base, you've got to support your friend group and your network any way you can. And there's going to be times you're going to miss it, but we just kind of have that rule of never say no twice, and try to be there and present as often as we can for the people in our circle.
Any closing words of wisdom for us?
Just take action.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Baker. I know I speak for Jeff and myself. We've enjoyed it. Would love to have you back on in a year or two when you have 18 different self-storage facilities and, 2 more businesses launched and running, and really see how things have taken off.
Yeah. Absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining. Like I said, it was a great story. Like I actually, more props to you. I knew you're a badass, but it's even cooler to hear that you really went, as corny as it sounds, Robo, with his little thing earlier, but against the grain on everything, because, you have a bunch of kids, man. They think it has to be this way. They have to have a mentor. They got to be in every mastermind, every master class. Everything's got to be telling yourself these things. I'm like, nah, sometimes it's a little different, and more people are like what your story is, man.
It's not going to be smooth no matter what you do.
Yeah, no doubt. Rebel gets that test every day trying to sell businesses.
I've yet to meet someone who has it figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Hey, let's be honest. We're all still trying to figure it out. We don't know what we're doing out here.
Nope.
Man, I think that's ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Baker. We'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me.